everyone, I'm Allie from Arda Wigs Canada. Thanks so much for tuning in for our very first Arda Wigs Canada at Home video. Our aim for this series is to bring you the best wig and crafting resources at home. Today I'll be hosting one of our most informative panels, Wigs 101. We asked you at home to send us questions and requests that you might have so that we can make these videos the most educational and fun they can be. Maybe we'll answer yours today. So Arda Wigs has over 80 styles and over 100 different colors. First off, I'd like to introduce you to the two different types of fibers that Arda Wigs sells. So we have our classic fiber and our silky fiber. Here we have a classic wig, and here's a silky wig. So the difference between the two of these is that, well, while they both do take heat, this one actually takes up to 420 degrees of heat. The silky fiber takes heat up to 350 degrees. If you're doing a lot of heavy styling, you really want to be doing it on a classic fibered wig. Or if you just want to wear something that's going to stay nice and smooth and easy to handle, silky is best for you. Both of these wigs are easily brushable and easily detangleable. You're going to have a lot easier of a time if you're looking for a super long wig with the silky. If you're looking to do some pretty intense styling and you want it to stay for good, you're going to want to use the classic fiber. So our wigs do come in a few different types of fronts, and they do have different types of skin tops inside of them. We have some wigs that are hard fronts. We also have wigs that have a skin top, and it's meant to mimic an actual hairline, so you can actually part it at any point along that skin top and heat style it so it will stay down. That way, even if a wig does come with a side part, you can change it to a middle part, you can flip the side. We also have a lot of hard fronted wigs that do have bangs as well, so they're not meant to be pulled back in any way, but they do look really cute with the bangs down. We have lace fronts, which come with a section of lace attached to the front where the hair is hand tied so that when it lays flat on skin and the lace is trimmed, it looks very realistic, almost like it's coming out of the skin. Our wigs come in bags like this. These plastic bags do have small holes in them to make sure that airflow ensures that no water or moisture gets stuck inside the bag at any point. Personally, I like to store my multitudes of wigs in plastic drawers, and I have actually drilled holes into those drawers to ensure that there's a nice airflow. One thing we don't like to recommend is to store them in cardboard or to hang them up in any way that they're not nicely contained. First off, I'm going to show you how to take out your wig and how to put it back in these bags. When you first get one of our wigs, they do come in the plastic bag. Around them is a hairnet. This is not a wig cap, those are two different things, and we'll go over that as well. This is just to keep the wig nice and clean and to ensure that flyaways don't go crazy inside the bag and get all staticky. And there are two pieces of tissue paper inside to make sure that the wig doesn't get flattened, especially if it has some sort of hairline inside or the skin top, so that it doesn't get folded. When you're storing them away again, it's best to put the tissue paper back inside. If you've lost the tissue paper that it came with, you can also use paper towels or another tissue paper that you purchased. You want to put the hairnet back over the wig, ensuring that everything is laying flat and nice. And put the wig back inside the bag. When you're storing a wig that you've styled, I recommend putting it on one of our foam heads. I like to put the wig on the head and ensure that it's pinned down in the right spot so that it doesn't slip off at all. And then we put a soft layer of broadcloth or a light fabric and then the hairnet over that. And that's to ensure that dust doesn't get inside and affect the wig at all. Especially if the wig that you have styled is a darker color or you've used a lot of the Got2b products on them or you've used some glue, you want to ensure that dust doesn't get inside because it will show on the darker fibers. Now I'm going to go over some tools that you need for wig styling. One of my favorite tools is just the portable wig stand, and this is for tables, so you can just put it on a table at the hotel you're staying at or at home. This is one of our more deluxe wig stands that you can actually move up 2 layers, so there's one more section that attaches to here. And that's for really long wigs, especially if your table's lower and you put this on there, you can elevate your wig 2 times up. So I did mention the foam heads. You can also use these for styling. We do recommend the ones that look nice and straight on at you. Sometimes you can find wig heads that are tilted slightly, but that's not the best for styling. It's really good for storage. However, you really want everything to stay nice and even, especially if you're cutting bangs or you're trimming the length. This is one of our canvas heads, and again, this is a little bit more for people who are really into wig styling or more serious about it, but it's a lot more durable, and it's more so head-shaped than these lovely foam heads that are great, but a lot smaller when it comes to the size. We recommend 3 types of brushes and combs for styling wigs. This is our paddle brush. We know it's a pet brush. We're going to be very transparent about it, but it's really great because it does have these metal bristles that don't have any balls on the ends of the bristles. So that makes you able to pierce tangles really well. We also sell the Diane comb. This is one of my favorite combs. It's really good for traveling. It's really good for when you're at a con. It's nice and small. It fits well into pockets. Usually I have a little brush pocket inside my costumes, and it just keeps you looking nice on the con floor. Again, metal bristles. This is a really good dual purpose comb for styling. It comes with the metal pick bristles here so that you can actually move aside the hair easily and part it. It also comes with the plastic bristles here with a teasing layer inside of here. When you're looking for a really good wig brush, it is important to stay with the ones that are metal bristled when you're working with synthetic fiber. This creates no friction and no tangles, whereas plastic bristles actually create more friction and tangles. So you want to avoid plastic unless you're trying to do something like teasing. The best hairspray and gel to use on synthetic fibers, specifically Arda Wigs, are the Got2b products. So this is the Got2b Glued Blasting Free Spray. It is a glue-based hairspray that works really well on synthetic fibers. If you're using regular hairspray that's meant for human hair on synthetic fiber wigs, you're not going to get the hold you want because they are water-based. That's so that they can react with human hair best, but again, because you're working with plastic, you want to do something that's glue-based. So the Got2b Glued Spiking Gel is really good for cleaning up the ends of spikes, and we'll demonstrate that in the heat styling panel. Another tool you want to have is some sort of really good clip. So these are alligator clips that we sell. This is one of my favorites to use because it can actually hold just a little bit of hair in it or a lot of hair, and the size adjusts to the bundle that it's holding back. So when you're styling our wigs specifically, you know that you're getting a high quality heat resistant fiber, but sometimes you can buy wigs online and you don't know if they're actually heat stylable. One of the best ways that you can test if a wig is heat stylable or not is just taking a small chunk of hair from the nape of the neck and pressing the flat iron against it. So if it is a heat stylable wig, you won't get any sort of resistance in terms of the heat on the plastic. You're just gonna get a nice, smooth, straightened line. But if you use the flat iron on a lower fibered wig, you're gonna get big sizzling here, and it's gonna be a big warning sign to stop using heat on that wig. So another really important tool you need for wig wearing specifically is the wig cap. So this is one of our netted wig caps, and it does have a hole at the top, which I'll demonstrate why it's there. It fits nicely over people's heads. Most people like to wear these ones because you can still bobby pin your wig through it. We do also sell nylon wig caps. So these ones are a solid fabric. I'm gonna put on a wig today so that I can demonstrate to you how the proper way to do it is. These elastics on the inside here. I have a medium-sized head, so I really do like to put these on the first or the second little loop, and that just keeps the wig nice and snug on my head. If you find that once you've done this the wig is too tight, you can adjust it, or if you find that wigs are very loose on you, you can move it in further. This is a really helpful tool, and a lot of people don't actually know what this is for, so there you go. If I were going to wear this normally, I would use a beige wig cap, mostly because that's the color on the inside here. You always want to match with whatever color's on the inside, or with whatever you need to use to mask your actual hair color underneath, especially if the wig is white or silver, one of our two really lighter colors, and some of the really light blondes. If you have darker hair, wearing a beige wig cap underneath, specifically the solid nylon one, can create the image that your hair is actually blonde underneath as well. When I'm putting on my wig caps, I start out with the netted one that has the hole in the top. So I put this over my neck as if I were to put a headband on. When I put on wigs, I like to do it with my hair straight and down. So I do have to straighten my hair for this. If your hair type is not like my hair type at all, there's a lot of different hacks that you can use to keep it the most comfortable it can be. A lot of people like to braid their hair down, especially if they have a lot of hair. Some people create a braid all the way around their head, which is really cool. And others do smaller pin curls around the head. The main goal that you want when you're doing this is to ensure that all of your hair is equally distributed around your head. So when I do it, I'm just gonna smooth it out so it's equally distributed. You don't wanna have a ponytail or a bun somewhere on the head, or a really big braid up here, or anything that's too uneven that'll create a weird bump on your wig. So I'm gonna pull this up, but I'm gonna leave the thicker elastic part downward because that's the part that ends up on my hairline. I wanna make sure my ears can escape. If you have glasses, it's actually really helpful to take them off at this point, but I need them to see. I lean forward, and as I talked about, I equally distribute my hair inside here. So we're gonna move it around and smooth it out. As long as I don't have too big of a bump down here, or too big of a bump up here, or on either of my sides, I'm nice and happy. So you can either just pin this down with a bobby pin or two, or you can give it a little tie. Again, I like to put this nylon wig cap on over this. So it's nice and smooth. One of the most important tips that I can tell you is that when you're putting on a wig, you never want to put it on upside down like they do in movies and TV shows. If your wig is really long, this can turn it into a horribly tangly mess, especially if it's big and styled as well. You always want to go around your head and lean back into it. It's actually very easy. I'm going to do it one more time. So I keep the wig facing away from me, then I bring it around, and I lean back into it. And then I can adjust it. And it's nice and comfortable to wear. So this is actually our Kelly wig in the purple to pink variant. So when you're taking off your wig, you want to use the same principle. So you're gonna loosen it at the top. I like to stick my hand in there and slide it off and bring it back in front of me. Again, none of that flipping over. Unless you've had a really long day at the con and you just want to whip that wig off, be ready to take care of it later. One of the questions we received, and we do actually get this question a lot, is how do I keep wig caps from sliding back on my head underneath my wig? My recommendations for that are to just put some bobby pins either in the opposite direction of the way that you're having the issue of it sliding up, or sideways as well, and you can crisscross them. So just putting a few bobby pins right around the crown of your head right here will help it from not sliding back. Also, if you're using the one that does have the hole and you're finding that your head is quite big and that's why it's sliding back, if you don't tie it up or close the hole and you just let it sit nicely on your head, the wig cap will stay equally distributed right around here and you won't experience it being too tight or pulling back at all. Another question we received is how do I keep really heavy wigs or ponytailed wigs on my head? So this is a product we sell called the Wig Grip. It is a velvet fabric. And the way it's worn is right around here, so that whatever wig you're wearing actually fights the grain of the fabric and doesn't slide back. When I say grain, I mean that the fabric runs one direction, so it runs this way and not backwards. So we line it up right there, and then whatever wig goes on top of this has to fight that fabric and not slip back. Another technique that keeps heavy wigs on your head really well is that some of our wigs do come with a built-in comb, or you can add in some wig clips that you can purchase just on the sides here. One of our more advanced questions that we got was actually how to cut a lace front wig. So it does come with this chunk of lace in the front, and in order to have it sitting down nicely on your head, you do want to cut it at least 1/2 to 1/4 of an inch close to the hairline. Some people cut off the entire lace. I personally don't recommend that, as I tend to find that you can lose fibers really easily if you cut off too much of the lace. Today I'm going to be cutting the lace off of our tutorial in silver. So I've pulled back the hair so that we can expose the entirety of the lace starting right here down where the elastic is. It's quite easy. You just snip slowly and ensure that you're not cutting the hair along the way. Another question we got was how to cut the bangs on a wig. So you'll notice that a lot of our wigs come with a really long bang, and that's just essentially to include the people who do have larger foreheads. We don't know how long your forehead is, we don't know how short it is, but it's best to cut rather than to have to add hair, so it's always going to be longer. Before you start cutting the bangs, you want to make sure that you've separated the hair so that only the bang pieces are here, or only how much bang you want there is there. So you could actually be taking from bigger sections here if you want the bangs to be really full, or you could be sending back some bangs if you only want a small section. One thing that I really like to do to ensure that I'm not cutting them too short or leaving them too long, measure my forehead from where my hairline is to where I want the bangs to end up, and then I will put a pin in that section. You can also put a permanent mark there and where you have to set the wig up here. Or you can just put pins in so that you know where your bangs start and stop. So that's the forehead. So I know when I'm cutting my bangs, I want to cut all the way up to here. Some people like a very blunt cut for certain characters. So if I'm doing a blunt cut, I like to bring the comb down to where it needs to be, and then go a little bit further down and literally just cut right across. I find if it's too blunt, I like to just pull the comb through and snip up to create a little bit more of a tapered look. And the reason why I cut a little bit further down from where my marker is because I am going to be tapering it. You can also go from behind, and the more you taper the hair, the more you do actually lose a little bit of it and a little bit of the length. So I like to actually use the same technique I used for cutting the longer hair shorter, just sliding down. This also creates some nice points if you're doing pointed anime bangs. Hi everyone, it's Ali for Arda Wigs Canada. Thanks for tuning in for another Arda Wigs Canada at Home video. Our aim for this series is to bring you the best wig and crafting resources to you at home. Today I'm going to be hosting one of our most popular panels, heat styling. So rule number 1 for heat styling with synthetic fiber wigs is you always let it cool, and that's how the shape stays. So you can heat up a wig as much as you want, but the heat is only going to make the hair malleable and formable. You need to then form it into whatever it needs to be, so a spike or a curl or whatever it is, and then the way it cools is the way it stays. So that is rule number 1. 2 of the most important tools for styling wigs with heat are a blow dryer with a cooling function and a flat iron. The things that you really want to pay attention to when you're picking these heat tools is not choosing anything that doesn't have a temperature dial or temperature settings. Essentially, a lot of heat tools that are on the lower end will just come with these numbers that tell us what the heat is. They'll relate to a number, so it'll be like temperature 2 or 5 or 30. That doesn't actually tell you what temperature you're using on your wigs, and you'll risk singeing it. So I would recommend one where you can actually see. In this case, this goes all the way up to 210 Celsius. So I like to be able to change that knob right to the middle setting, and then I know I'm not gonna hurt my wigs at all. If you're going to curl a wig, you don't actually have to use the curling iron the same way you normally would for human hair. So I don't even plug it in. I actually just use it as a cold barrel for me to style around. Again, the number one rule is that a style will stay the way that it's cooled, not the way it's heated. So if I have hot hair, I can wrap it around any shape and it'll stay that way. This also works for crimping tools and anything that's the right size of curl that you want. You can use a pencil or a Sharpie marker if you want a really tight ringlet, or you can use a different type of curling iron barrel. So today I'm going to be working with a classic fibered wig. So we recommend using our classic fiber for any heat styling because it takes heat up to 420 degrees and it'll hold it a lot nicer in the long run. If you're using our silky fiber, you're gonna end up with possibly a little bit harder of a time to keep your curls in place or your styling in place because it really just wants to be however it was made, whether that's straight and long and silky or curly and silky, you'll always kind of want to go back to that. Classic, however, is fair game for styling. This wig is a custom dyed grace, so that's why it's lost a lot of its curl. It's because it has actually gone through boiling water to be dyed. So you can use water to relax the curls from a wig, boiling water, or you can use it to curl a wig by putting the hair into foam rollers and dipping it into the boiling water. This is not my favorite method because it does require you to know exactly what the temperature of your boiling water is at all times, and you have a lot less control over it than if you're using a heat tool, especially if you've curled it all up and then you boil it and you let all the curls out and you realize they're not the size you wanted or they're not laying the right direction. With heat, you can immediately attend to that. So when I'm curling or straightening any pieces of hair, I only go in small chunks. So I'm using about 1 inch of hair here, maybe even 1.25 inches, and now I will demonstrate the curl. So you're going to want to have your curling iron not plugged in on hand. I say that because I am going to be touching it with my hand. If this was plugged in, we would have a big hazard. And then we also need our flat iron tool. So we're going to grab that small chunk of hair. And we're going to heat it up. And now we wait. I like to use a little bit of the Got to Be Glued Blasting Freeze Spray. So now that we've curled the piece, I'm actually going to now straighten that hair. So the first thing I want to do anytime I'm going to straighten a wig is if it's curly, you brush out the curls, because even though it's been heat set, and when you first get your wig it's been heat set, a little brush does help loosen the curl a little bit and it'll help you just in the long run. Again, when I'm straightening I like to use little chunks just so that I'm not pulling too much under the flat iron or too much under the curling iron. I'm going to put a brush up here and gently hold the hair down like this. And then I'm gonna get my flat iron right above it and gently pull down. One of the questions that we received for this panel is how to move the part on one of our wigs that have a skin top on the inside. So the skin top means that we've got a nice fake little hairline mimicked right here that makes it look a little bit more realistic than a regular hard front wig, but a little bit less than a lace front wig. Because the section of skin goes from here to here, we can actually move the part to the side. So I like to work in little chunks. So we're gonna have it over here. I'm just gonna decide where I want it first. If you just pull it over like this, You will risk it wanting to slide back to the place where it actually was once. Because the wig came that way, it was heat set that way. So we're gonna just, in small sections, heat train it to go this way. I'm gonna put one clip here so that I know where my part starts. And I'm gonna have one more clip over here so that I can take that hair over and clip it down. So let's start with little bits. I'm gonna use the hair dryer. And then I'm gonna cool it down with the cooling function, so just like that. If you want to add a little bit of the Got to Be Glued Blasting Freeze Spray, you can do so right here. Smooth it and clip it down here. Now I'm gonna do that for every layer until we reach the other clip. Now we're gonna do one of my favorite things to do with wigs, spiking. So I'm using a Jaguar today. And Jaguar does have a teased top, so it's really ideal for pulling hair up into spikes. The most important thing you do even before you start tackling your spiked wig is the planning. So I like to take a 360 turn of my character or a ton of reference photos, and I assign every spike on the character's head to a color or a number or some sort of system that works for me, so that I can have a glossary of every single time you turn the head where the spike sits. There's a lot of characters who it might look like their spike is sticking out the side, but it's actually tilted backwards as well, so it's really important to pay attention to your reference photos. So one really helpful tool for when you are doing this is tiny little hair ties, coming clear and black. And it's just so that you can sort of mentally decide where all your spikes are going to be by using little ponytails. This is really good for planning because you can see if the wig actually does have as much hair as you want for the spikes, or if you need to sew in some extra wefts. Another thing that this does is show you if the hair is too long for that spike. Let's say I wanted the spike to be as long as the shortest bit of hair here. It means that I'm going to have to get rid of this before I start spiking. Otherwise, I'm going to create the spike, it's going to be too big and too long, then I'll chop off the end and you're going to get a weird jagged edge. Once you've used the Got to Be products on it, it's just going to look really bad. So you want to do it beforehand. One of my favorite methods for just cutting off little bits of hair is to either go down or up against it. I'm going to go downwards and against it because it does give it a little bit of a tease while also eliminating that tip of hair. Now when I hold up the spike, I'm seeing it a lot more as the size I want it to be in the end. So once we've sectioned off the hair that we want to use, one method that I really like using is the bullseye method. So say if you're looking down at the spike, it's a circle. You're going to find the center of the bullseye, so right in the middle, the core of the spike. And you're going to tease that first. This definitely doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to hold up the strength of the spike. I press the flat iron on it, heat that up really good, and I cool it down with the Got to Be Glued Blasting Freeze Spray. Now keep in mind, don't go too close when you're using this, especially on darker colors, because you're going to get what we call snow, which is all little specks of white. You want to stay a little bit further away. While you're regathering all the hair that goes around the spike, you want to tease just the inside, making sure that you don't push the comb too far through because you don't want to make the spike super messy. Now I I turn the blow dryer on the spike. And the cooling function. I'm finding that the end of the spike is still a little bit too high, so before it gets too glued or anything, I'm just going to trim off a little bit more on the end. Spray it. And one of the questions that we got was how to keep the tips of your spike clean and together. So I'm going to spray it a little bit more, but then I am going to use the Got to Be Glued spiking gel. Whenever I use this product, I like to have a little Tupperware container or bucket around of water because it does get your hands very sticky very quick. So I just gently touch it on my fingertips and then I swoop up on the end. This is a really cool product. It's a little bit less harsh than actual glue, but some people do use tacky glue or any other type of really nice glue here. I just find that this is much less harsh and it can be washed out later. So another question we got was actually what to do if you've used tacky glue in your spikes. And unfortunately, because it's a very strong hold glue, it's very difficult to get out. But when you're washing our wigs, you can do so in lukewarm water with dish soap. And that's the best way you can wash any sort of glue or hairspray out of the wigs. Now I'm going to do the same thing by heat activating this. So I'm going to heat it up and cool it down again. If you want to keep your spike nice and strong, the best thing you can do is just pile on that Got to Be and keep using the hot to cold method. So I heat it up and then I cool it down. Heat it up, cool it down. I almost call this shocking the wig, so you make it really hot and then you make it really cold really quick. So that's a really good method. Hi everyone, it's Ali from Arda Wigs Canada again. Thanks for tuning in for another Arda Wigs Canada at Home video. Our aim for this series is to bring you the best wig and crafting resources to you at home. Today, I'm going to be hosting one of our most popular and requested panels, Wig Rescue. We asked people to submit questions and requests online to help make this series the most educational and fun that it can be. Maybe we'll answer yours today. There's a few tips I can recommend for prevention of tangling wigs. One of the first ones is to always put it back in the bag it came from, which we demonstrated in Wigs 101, and to store them correctly. Don't hang them up, especially on shoe racks on the back of doors. It's a really cute idea, however, you're opening and closing that door so often that it might get more tangly as you use the door. You can also keep your heavily styled wigs on heads in storage as well. One of my favorite tips for really long wigs or for ponytail clips is to actually keep them stored in a rope braid. Some people use traditional braids, but I tend to find that that leaves a lot of waves and curves in the actual fiber. But if you're using a rope braid, you're just creating a gentle wave that can easily be brushed out, especially if you do it loosely. You can create a rope braid by taking the 2 strands of hair. You can also do this in chunks, so you could do it over here with 2 strands, or do it over there. But we're gonna do it just all the hair, 2 strands. Both of these strands of hair need to be twisted in the same direction. This can be a little tricky, and just do it loosely. And then you take these 2 strands and you twist them over each other in the opposite direction. So we just turned right, and now we're gonna twist them left over each other. You can put a small hair tie on the end here, and that way it's stored nice and clean, and there's not too many loose hairs sliding around the bag and creating more tangles and more static, and it's ready for you to wear next time. Another really good prevention tip is actually if you're not doing a photo shoot or a video shoot, or you don't need it behind your back for some reason, try not to wear a long wig behind your back. Try to wear it in a way that you can always see the hair. So I keep it split and over my shoulders in front of me. That way I know it's not getting stuck to somebody's giant wings or a booth in the dealer's hall or even on my own backpack or purse. Sometimes we need to wash our wigs, which does happen if you've worn it too many times or if you put a style in it that you didn't like and you'd like to start over, especially if you use any of the Got2b products or any water-based glue. You can wash your wigs in lukewarm water with a light dish soap. A light dish soap means a clear dish soap or yellow or even orange, but don't go into the blues and greens because sometimes they can leave a slight residue, especially on a wig that's white or silver or lighter blonde. When you're washing it in a tub or a basin sink, you can pat all of the soap in it and gently wash it. And then when you take it out of the wash, you'd like to lay it on a towel and pat it dry and then hang it up to dry completely. Don't try to brush through a wet wig because you will pull the fibers and stretch them, and then you'll end up with a bunch of little loose fibers on the end. We don't want that, so wait until it's fully dry. I also really just like to wash the inside cap of my wig, even if the wig itself doesn't need to be washed, just because the more you wear it, this can become sweaty or even smelly over time. One really important thing to remember when it comes to washing wigs is if you've gone to a convention where there's a water park or a pool, or you've done a shoot in chlorinated water, you do need to wash your wig later. Don't take that wet wig and put it in a bag and expect it to be nice later on. It's gonna smell like vinegar and dirty socks. First off, we're going to start with your tools for wig rescue. So the most important tool is a brush with metal bristles, which is again where we're going to recommend our paddle brush. So because it has no balls on the ends and metal bristles, it's going to create less friction and therefore less tangles, and it's going to help you a lot when you're trying to brush through the really hard tangles. Another one of our favorite products to use for detangling is the mane and tail detangler. So this product was traditionally and originally made for horses, but has developed since then to be used in human hair and also synthetic fiber wigs. One really important feature about this product is that it is super safe for humans around our faces and heads. Other people have recommended different types of lubricants for detangling and keeping wigs from getting tangled, but they're not actually safe for humans, and I wouldn't recommend putting them anywhere near your face or your head. This, however, is safe. Another product that you can use for detangling is a flat iron, which is probably going to come as a surprise to some people, but you can use it just to clean up any of the fuzzy ends, and I will demonstrate that. Another that is really helpful is a comb with metal tipped ends for pulling apart more difficult to get through tangles. And now for my favorite part, detangling some really messy fibers. Now this is something you might want to do while you're streaming some TV or listening to a podcast because it can take quite a while. I'm just going to demonstrate on one section today because I don't want to be here for a few hours. When you are sectioning off the wig, I recommend starting as high up as you can go and gently pulling the section apart with your fingers and pulling down. You'll find that one of your best tools for detangling is actually just your hands. So I've elevated the wig all the way up using the tripod stand that I have here because I do have to start at the bottom, and this is quite a long ponytail clip. I'm going to start off by using some of the mane and tail detangler just to help lubricate the fibers so that I can pull them apart with my fingers first before I even start touching it with a brush. Any of the fibers that you do find are loose and hanging at the bottom once you've started to pull tangles apart and pull them down have already broken off from the wefting at the top. So don't think that by doing this you're making it worse or pulling out more fibers. The actual anatomy of a tangle is hair that has fallen from the top and slid all the way down to the point where the tangle actually is. So that's what a tangle is. So all of this hair was actually just weaved within here and creating those tangles. You can stop that from happening by using some of the preventative measures of keeping your wigs nice and tidy. For the next step, I am going to spray it with a little bit more of the mane and tail detangler just at the bottom. We want to use a paddle brush right at the bottom, and again, this is a method I demonstrated when showing how to brush wigs. You always start at the bottom so that when you're pulling down the rest, you're not going to get stuck in tangles along the way. Once you've got a lot of the tangles out of the hair at the bottom, you want to start working your way up further and doing the same method of pulling apart the tangles with your fingers and pulling them down. And now that the bottom of the wig's detangled, they're going to slide right down and out. And then again, you're going to go through with your brush, starting at the bottom and going up and up and up further until you get to the new section that you pulled apart. And you're going to keep going up with this method. And remember to take your time and be patient. And if you come across any more difficult tangles along the way, pull them apart carefully. Now, if you're using one of our wigs that do take heat, this is one of my favorite steps. So you'll notice that some of the fibers are really crinkly and maybe not as nice as they were when you first got it. We can actually just go over this with heat and set it back to the way it came. If you're using a wig that is not heat stylable, unfortunately you'll have to stop at this step, though it does look much better than the original section of tangled hair. And going back to our heat styling video, whenever you're doing anything that involves a flat iron, you want to do it in smaller sections. So we're not going to tackle this huge chunk of hair here. We're going to start with a much smaller section first. And we're going to straighten the hair again. Now, there's a different method for when the wig is curly, and I'll go over that. We're going to start up here. We're going to line the flat iron up over it, and we're going to slide it down. And this is just going to heat treat all of the fibers back to being nice and smooth. One thing I need to mention when you're detangling any wig is that you want to start all the way underneath at the nape of the neck of the wig. So you're going to do that method where you gently pull it apart. This wig's actually in really nice condition still. And you clip up the hair, and you'd start by detangling the layers down here first. And then you let down a little bit more at a time and work on it in sections. Our curly wigs actually do have the coolest feature. So this has only been worn maybe once or twice and it's starting to look a little messy. You don't need to do the whole process of heating it up, straightening and recurling it unless it's already gone really badly. So what you could do is, if it was really bad, Do the same process we did in the straight wig. Straighten it completely, and then using our tutorial from the heat styling video, curl it all back up. This takes a lot of time rather than just focusing on it every single time you wear it. And before you put it away, make sure that you reset it. So I'm gonna reset these curls. So you're gonna pull apart a curl. You can also spray it with a little bit of detangler. Use the same method of starting at the bottom when you brush it. Do this for every single curl on its own. And you can literally just wrap it around your fingers. Press it a little bit and let go. And you have a perfect new fresh curl. So just do this with every single little curl section just before you put it away. Hi everyone, I'm Allie from Arda Wigs Canada. Thanks for tuning in for another Arda Wigs Canada at Home video. Our aim for this series is to bring the best wig and crafting resources to you at home. Today I'm going to be hosting one of our most popular and requested panels, Advanced Wig Styling. We asked people to submit questions and requests online to help make this series the most educational and fun that it can be. Maybe we'll answer yours today. When I get a bundle of wefts, I like to open it up slowly and cut off anywhere from around 1.5 feet, because it's much easier to work with a section this size than the full 8-foot length. Another really handy tip that I have is actually taking a few layers and just running them through a sewing machine or hand sewing them together so that you have a larger chunk for sewing in. You can add wefts to every single row or every few rows of a wig for either fullness or dimension of color, which in this case I've done both. So in this wig, it started out as cherry red and I added an entire extra wig of crimson wefts into it. So personally, I hand sewed all of these wefts in because I find that when the wig stretches and the elastics pull and move, it fits nicely around the head. However, if you are pressed for time, you can glue them in. One of the more advanced questions we get is how to do a ventilated lace front. So a lot of our wigs do come with that extra chunk of lace if you need to modify or completely add a hairline. So this is one that I personally did. I marked out where it was going and then I hand tied 1 to 3 strands of hair in each one of the holes here. This can take a long time. It is quite an intense process, but again, put on a TV show or a series that you really like or some music and just go at it. So this is a ventilating needle. It's meant to be used with 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, depending on the size of the hook, fibers at once. And you essentially rug hook them in through these holes. We do have a tutorial on this, which is linked. Ventilating is just a really cool way to add a little bit of extra flair to a hairline or to help cover up your actual hairline. Another technique we get asked about often is creating a more realistic root. So this is actually done with an art marker that's alcohol based, and it's a shade of brown that I just markered on and pulled through gently so that it would get a soft and realistic touch. One of the questions we got was about splicing. Now, while we do have a video about that, I will show our Kyle style. So this is one of the two styles that we have that come in an undercut and have a longer wig over it. This is essentially two different wigs put together. It's a Rocky and a Cane to create its own undercut style. So this is the opposite two ends of a wig that I put together. So this is what we're left over with, but I'll demonstrate with them today. So these are both Jareth wigs that I turned inside out and cut in the same area. So essentially there were two full wigs. I marked out where to cut the top off, and I did it on both sides, and then you're left over with the top and the bottom. You can hand sew the one wig on the wefts or on the elastic to the other. You can either do this by hand, you can glue it, or you can run it through a sewing machine if you're nice and careful. This is a Silky Nina in titanium blonde that I dyed two different colors to a slight ombre. One of the questions that we got was how to dye a wig two different colors. So for this, I used the Rit Dye More synthetic dyes. I wanted it to be very subtle, so I didn't leave it in for too long. The longer you leave it in the boil, the darker the color you're gonna get. We recommend buying singular color samples in the same color as your base to test how long you need to leave it in the mix. This one specifically, I isolated the section that I wanted to dye the first color, and I used two barbecue prongs to hold them inside the boil so that I get the color I wanted for the amount of time I wanted. Then after that, I isolated the next section and I dipped that in the color as well. Again, using those barbecue tongs because I didn't want to burn my hands at all. So we're going to delve into spiking 2.0 because actually quite a few of the questions that we received are about this topic. So we showed you spiking and heat styling, but we're going to go over it a little bit more intensely for advanced styling. So there's a lot of characters that have really, really big spikes and strange shapes. One of the things that we recommend is creating some sort of armature to go underneath. This is a styrofoam cone. And this is 4mm Formlite EVA foam from Lumen's Workshop. The cool thing about this is that you can actually create different shapes. So this is just a basic cone shape that if you were to glue it together on the seams, you'd get a soft and small cone. But you can do this for any size and you can create geometric shapes. Just think about your pattern first. And the way you would use these armatures is once it is either painted the same color as the wefts or you've painted it and covered it with some wefts, you isolate the inside of a spike. You can either get rid of some of the hair here or just tease it and pull it around it. And you can either glue your shape down or if it's felt, you can hand sew it in. So I love the concept of hand sewing anything in a wig rather than gluing it because it creates less permanency. That way down the line you can use it for something else or you can fix it up by taking it out completely and redoing it. Essentially in the end it would look a little like that. So you would still build your spike the same way I told you how to build it in the heat styling video, except instead of teasing that intersection to create the base, your base is a solid object, and then you build around that using heat. Thank you so much for watching another Arda Wigs Canada at home video. Today we did advanced styling and hopefully you're a little bit more equipped to tackle some advanced styles. If you do have any more questions, you can always email us at info@ardawigscanada.ca.